This is a war on religion. This is a war on the children. They give you the cure with the sickness. This is a war on tradition.
Hello, this is Dr. Kevan Kruse with the Truth, Faith, and Action Alliance, and we're grateful that you're interested in becoming aware of the large-scale sexual assault against our children. But before we get started, please don't forget to like our videos and subscribe to our channel. Liking and sharing our videos and posting them on your social media is one of the best ways to help because most people are unaware of what's happening. The situation that initially caught my attention with respect to sex trafficking literally happened right next door. We live in a very rural area, but the huge house next door sat vacant for many years. At one point, I even thought about purchasing it. When someone eventually did, I asked their builder, "What's going on with all those small rooms upstairs?" That's when he informed me that the previous owner was arrested for sex trafficking in multiple countries. No, I'm not kidding. Now, before going any further, I realize that this subject is sensitive and difficult for most of us to hear. But I want to put you at ease, because just like the Sound of Freedom movie, we'll be doing a PG-13 type presentation of what we can all agree is a crucial topic. The good news is that millions of people have now watched the Sound of Freedom movie, and if you haven't watched it, you should. Believe it or not, it received a shocking 100% Rotten Tomatoes audience score. Of course, I love the movie's theme. God's children are not for sale. Here's what we learned from the movie. Human trafficking is now a $150 billion a year industry. Tragically, the U.S. is one of the top destinations for human trafficking and a top consumer of child porn. Unfortunately, there are more people trapped in slavery today than at any point in human history, including when slavery was legal. Some sources concede that millions of these slaves are children, and that sex slavery is the most common kind of slavery. Yet under the Joe Biden administration, 85,000 undocumented children have gone missing. The 85,000 represents the number of children who cannot be reached. However, the total number let into our country was 152,000 in 2022. Just remember, that's only a small part of the children that are coming through our border in any given year. There's also a terrifying change of attitude when it comes to sex trafficking and pedophilia. I've already shared an article where the New York Times says that pedophilia is a disorder and not a crime. But CNN has done one better. In an article called The Myth of the Monster Pedophile, here are some of their conclusions. Pedophiles are not monsters or social deviants lying in the shadows. It's high time we updated our image of pedophiles. The second article called for sympathy because they didn't choose to be a pedophile. Now think about Epstein Island, his mysterious death, and yet there's still no real investigation. More recently, the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs included allegations of sex trafficking and that there were minors involved. The problem is that P. Diddy is the heart of the entire music industry, and celebrities, politicians, and even preachers have been known to party with him. But we will have to wait more until that story breaks. However, we've already talked about how sex trafficking was barely being punished in some states. For example, trafficking children for sex in California was only recently changed to a felony in 2023. Buying children was also a misdemeanor until the same year, but even after the change, they decided that 16 and 17-year-olds would remain a misdemeanor. But I want to talk about a New Zealand case where a judge declared that 12-year-old children can consent to sex with adults. The case in question featured a 45-year-old man whose defense centered on the claim that this 12-year-old wanted it. Legally, a person under 16 cannot give consent for charges of indecent acts. Therefore, as a jury, all you need to decide is if the indecent acts took place. Then came the kicker. But as for sexual intercourse, a person under 16 can give consent. You need to consider whether or not the consent was given based on the evidence you have. At this point, it's plain to see that society's attitudes about children are horrifying, but this may only be the tip of the iceberg. This leaves many of us wondering, what in the world could we possibly do to help? Thankfully, we have Nate Lewis from the innocent.org to share with us not only how close this issue is to our home, but also what we can do about it. Indeed, Nate is going to help us see that sex trafficking is not happening like you think. Nate Lewis is the founder of theinnocent.org, and their mission is to protect and preserve the innocence of children from sex trafficking, exploitation, and sexual assault. Previously, Nate was an executive for one of the largest organizations trying to prevent global trafficking. Nate also collaborates with federal and local law enforcement agencies in online investigations and operations. Here is Nate Lewis.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. I'm from the Northwest in Idaho, so being down here, it's like summer, and so I'm really enjoying the sun and the people. You guys are amazing. Met a lot of amazing people here, and just thank you to Yvette and Kevin for having me. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you having me here. A little background on me. I worked, I think you read a little bit about it. I worked for one of the largest organizations, actually the movie The Sound of Freedom. So I worked for that organization for several years, traveled the world, dealing with human trafficking. I'll give you a little brief on human trafficking. So we focused on child sex trafficking, which sex and child shouldn't really mix, as we all know, but we also dealt with human trafficking and child trafficking, like forced labor. One of my first experiences was hunting witch doctors that were sacrificing children, and that was kind of my no turning back point. We dealt with organ harvesting, forced begging, online exploitation, child sex hotels. Yes, it's a thing. I saw a lot of shocking things. Then I kept getting asked by so many people, what are you doing right here in the United States? And, we were focused mostly international, and I kept wondering, like, how can we do more here in the United States? And so I worked a lot with law enforcement, and talking to law enforcement, understanding where their lacks of budgeting and their personnel, and what they needed to really focus on this. And I'll get into that here in a second. I realized that there's an opportunity here to get the people to fund their local police to protect their communities from predators. So we exist to protect and preserve the innocence of children from sex trafficking, exploitation, and sexual assault by equipping and training law enforcement to do online investigations. So our specialty really is the training and some of this technology that they can't afford. Some of this technology is very expensive. These companies have a monopoly pretty much on this equipment, and so they don't spend their money on some of this equipment. So they also don't know where to start. Sometimes, some of these rural departments don't know where to start. So we are able to meet them wherever they are. If they've never done these investigations, if they're already doing these investigations, we can take them to the next level, maybe get them into the organized crime units of this atrocity. Look at this. Can we go to the next one? I don't need my face up there any longer. So this is the foundation. You can keep going here. This will just keep me on track. Keep going to the next slide, please. Keep going. Keep going. One more, please. Yeah, so that'll kind of tell you a little bit more about kind of what we're doing. We're developing the relationships with law enforcement and communities. You can keep going here onto the next slide. Here's some statistics that I think are shocking to most people. If you look at some of these statistics, there's 42 million survivors of sexual assault living in the United States right now. That's 1 in 8. So there's quite a few in here today. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. It's a prevalent problem, sexual assault. That's why we focus on trafficking, exploitation online. We also focus on, we watch the pattern of life. So we know where these criminals start. We know that back when I was a kid, it was Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, and now we know that that's like nothing. A 4-year-old can write the wrong thing on YouTube and find something you don't want to talk about with a 4-year-old. And so we understand, where are these criminals at? What are they doing? What's their activity? Are they searching the internet? What are they downloading? What are their activities? And then we can go out there and do the investigations and kind of set them up in a sense. We go undercover just like you would for a drug sting. And you arrest them once they are attempting to commit a crime. What's important about that is, if you look at our name, Innocence Rescue Mission, we're here to protect and preserve innocence. What we don't want is the guy to progress to a younger age, and then an even younger age, and then wanting to pay for that, and then eventually, even after paying for it, being in the wrong place at the wrong time and not paying for it, if you know what I mean. And I'm trying to be a little PG-13 here, I don't want to send you all home to trauma therapy, so I kind of sugarcoat it a little bit. But that's a lot of what we're doing with law enforcement, is getting them trained, getting them equipped to know how to go online. All this is happening online right now. There's the dark web and the light web. The dark web is where most of you guys don't know about. Most people don't, unless you're in this arena, you know where to get it. Just like if you want to get meth, you know where to go to get meth. It's the same kind of a deal. But then the light web is where you guys are all on, most of you, probably not all, and that's social media. Social media plays a huge part in this. We talked a little bit about it earlier in the breakout session. Right now, they're not only allowing it, they're enabling it, and they're promoting it. So what our team does, so all my team is active duty law enforcement investigators and federal agents, the task force officers for federal agencies. And so what we do is we do undercover work, but it's mostly online undercover with fake profiles. And we can create an account on these social media sites, and within minutes, literally sometimes seconds, we are instantly contacted to be pursued by a predator. On one very well-known Snapchat, we got about 450 in a matter of days predators for a 14-year-old. And they're actually, as soon as you start hitting accept that friend request, accept, and just go down the list because you're getting so many, and then they instantly want to message you, they start giving you more. Like that app just starts giving you more, like more suggestions. And they know. And it actually even has like your emoji and your female 14 on there. And then you would think they can monitor the chat, because in the chat, in order to do these type of crimes and to actually build a case that's prosecutable so that you can put them away, they have to agree to certain things. One of those things is they'd agree to your age. So in the chat, they're agreeing to your age, being 14. Come on. You don't think you guys can monitor that and at least red flag that? I mean, I can't make a post on social media without me getting shut down for 30 days, you know? So you're telling me this can't be monitored? So they're enabling it. And that's what I think is very important for those that were at the breakout session. Social media is such an important thing right now to be discussing, and it's very difficult, we know, as parents. I said it earlier, or I'll say it again for those that missed it. It's not even about having those conversations. It's about having the relationship with your children to be able to have those conversations. So you got to have that relationship. It has to start young. There's no way you're going to just not give them a phone. At some certain age, they're going to get their own phone. There's no way for the rest of their life you're going to keep them off these. And their friends are on them, so they're probably going to be on there anyways. So really just educating the children on what are the dangers, because it's no longer taking candy from a stranger or the creepy guy at the playground. The playground's inside your house, behind their door, on their device. So you gotta not let them inside your home communicating with your child through this phone. There's too many fake accounts. We were talking about it a little bit earlier. First I'll start by saying this. If you're a young girl and you have a social media account, it's 100% guarantee, 100%. If you're somewhat putting yourself out there, just somewhat, not even really trying, you will be approached. You will be approached, guaranteed. And I know one of my best friend's niece had to get off of it because she looked like the girl here. And she was approached 12 to 15 times a day by different people every day, to where she had to just get off of it. Some more of those stats, if you can't read it: 1 in 3 girls will be sexually abused by the time they're 18. That's a new statistic, right? So 42 million, that comes from a population of 333 million, right? We're now looking at, that's 1 in 8. Now, with the younger generation and what's going on, it's now gonna be 1 in 3. That's how prevalent this is, because they're online. It's happening way more than it used to when we were all kids. It's happening over and over and over. Another staggering statistic is that 20% of those, you'll look at that, if you can't read that, they're under the age of 8 years old. And I can tell you, I won't, but I could tell you some horrific stories about really young kids. And what's even more mind-blowing is some of the parents that are selling or abusing their own children, which is absolutely mind-blowing. The last stat you're gonna see there before we go to the next slide, there's 500,000 registered sex offenders in the United States. 100,000 of those, no one knows where they are. And here's another crazy thing. If you're taking notes, go to a website called familywatchdog.us. It's the National Registry. Put in your address and then try to sleep tonight. Because there are way more people who are registered as sex offenders in your neighborhood than you will believe it. And let me just tell you about that. Even though you're gonna go in there and you're gonna see their mugshot and you're gonna read their case, you're gonna see all that stuff and it's gonna frighten you, but it'll make you more aware of the truth. The familywatchdog.us. The staggering thing about that website is that it'll freak you out and it'll probably shock you more than you've ever even thought. And I hear it all the time, and you're gonna say it. I never would have thought it was that guy. Because they don't look like the kid at the park with the backpack on that's living in the streets. They're everywhere. Thursday night when we were doing operations, we were talking to an 8th grade math teacher, talking to a 14-year-old girl online. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. So that site that I told you about, that's gonna only show you those who have been caught, arrested, convicted, found guilty, and then registered as a sex offender. That's not, just take one step backwards. What if they didn't register, right? They're not gonna be on there. And then many steps back, they haven't been caught. There's way more of those guys that haven't been caught. I can tell you right now. Just a little insight to this location. I didn't use this address, obviously, but my team did use an address locally hereby to do some undercover operations where we post a 14-year-old girl. And we did it on a lukewarm site, not even like the most grotesque one, but this is a site that's known for 100% just buying sex. A lot of it is for adults, but you will get children on there, obviously. And within 24 hours, we had 48 responses here locally. If you go to Tampa, you're looking at hundreds, close to 1,000 probably. That's how prevalent this is. In a town that I grew up in, and this is when I was telling you earlier about all that shocking stuff like child sacrifice, the organ harvesting that we do with it, it is shocking. This is one of the biggest shockers to me when we started working inside the United States. I grew up in a small town, about 50,000 people. So of course I'm gonna start there, and that's where my buddies are all there. They're active investigators, and I said, hey, let's start running some of this stuff here. We're gonna equip you guys. We're gonna get you the training. And they're like, well, how many guys do you think we're gonna catch? No, they're not. When I say guys, they're not all men, but for the most part they are. And I was like, I bet there's got to be at least 12, right? Like, all right. We run it within 24 hours, 55 different buyers. In a small little town, I would have never have guessed that it would have been that high. And that was like, whoa. And then we started running them in different towns. I won't name some of these towns. And you're getting hundreds. Quick. Well, on Thursday night, we literally filmed us doing a stopwatch. He gets the ad ready to post. And he's like, okay, ready? Hits the button. It goes through. Start the stopwatch. 10 seconds was our first message. Within 6 minutes, we had 42 messages on this site. And there's a lot of these sites. I'm just talking about one of them. This is happening over and over and over right here in our backyards, and most people don't even realize it. Can you go to the next slide, please? I'll try to keep on track here. So more statistics here. I'll let you kind of read some of these. This one says, these all have sources at the bottom, and I can share some of this stuff with you because you obviously can't read that. I can't even read that. So 500,000 internet predators are pursuing children right now daily. You can go to the next one. I will say on that last slide, you can keep it here, it's fine. On that last slide, I think this is really important. One of the really important things about what we do is, and we don't really know how much trafficking is going on, but when you look at the reports that are being provided in 2022, there was nearly 22,000 cases that were actively reported and acted upon. It's probably quite a significant more than that. But think about, even if it was 50,000 reports, which is an extraordinary amount, that's more than an NFL football stadium, right? Mostly. Think about the 42 million people living in the United States that have been sexually abused. That's why it's so important to do the online investigations. Because you've got stepdads that are abusing their stepchildren or abusing their neighbor's kid's friend, or you got coaches that are abusing their athletes that they're coaching. This is happening. Sex abuse is happening all the time, everywhere. So even though we do focus on trafficking and we do focus on exploitation, which, by the way, if you're not familiar with what that is, that's me pretending to be a 14-year-old online and talking to a 14-year-old girl and telling her the things she's never heard before and making her feel really great, and then telling her to send me a picture of her in a bikini by the pool because she hangs out in public in a bikini. There's nothing wrong with that. And then she starts sending pictures in her bikini, and then I start selling those online in the dark web of a 12-year-old or 14-year-old in a bikini. And that's where it starts, and then it goes from there. And then how some of these predators work, this is very, very important for you. If you have kids, listen to this piece. This is what they need to know. And this will help you with these conversations. These guys, men, will create those accounts. They're fake. They prey on the vulnerable. Girl can just say, I hate boys, make a post. We know where she's at. And then go in to a 14-year-old at a 50-year-old level of manipulation and manipulate that girl with really cute pictures of a young boy and then start asking for those pictures. It takes a while. They start grooming them. And then these photos start coming, and then they start sharing photos and all these things, and then they are now friends with her mom and her sister and all of her friends at school. They're all friends now. Oh, they're friends with so-and-so, friend request, friends, and now we're all friends. And then at some point, and here's a true story, this is actually with a boy. This happened to a boy, because they can really target boys with cute girls. This is a true story, and this young boy started sending pictures to this young girl, and they were having a relationship. They'd never met in person. They're having this really amazing relationship, and they started friending her, the friends of this boy and parents. And then at one point he said, all right, I am not a 14-year-old girl, and I'm friends with all your friends and your family, and I have all these pictures. And you need to wire me $10,000 to Nigeria tonight, or I'm going to expose all of these to everybody that you know. And he was so afraid, and you're going to see some stats up here. He was so afraid to tell his parents that he committed suicide. And that's a true story. You can find that one online too. So when I talk about exploitation, you're now talking about a whole nother area where it's actually happening all electronically, right? So those people never met, right? And those pictures that are being bought and sold and traded, like baseball cards, is all happening online, right? And then you're talking about sexual assault, which we know is happening physically. Maybe it's in the home or within the family, schools, whatever it may be. A lot of times parents, I hate to say it, it's just the truth and the reality. It happened to me. Your kid goes to stay at their friend's house, and an older sibling is the one who ends up abusing your child. And it's unfortunate that that's just the case, but that's where you probably are most likely getting the 1 in 3 girls abused before 18. So you just got to be careful. And it's not even that you don't trust the parents and their friends. It's mostly going to be the siblings. Could potentially be the stepdad or the dad as well, but it's for sure you're going to see a lot of sexual assault and abuse happen from an older sibling, unfortunately. So just be cautious of that. A couple more stats here. Like I said, 75% of them don't even tell the parents. 90% of parents, they never even know. That's a huge issue. Parents have to know what their kids are doing online. They're spending so much time there. Again, they're not on the playground anymore. Their playgrounds are video games, which is another avenue. And they'll get them from the playground or from the gaming systems, and they start talking to them, and they tell them to move to this other site off, because those gaming systems, actually, I've met with Xbox. They have 550 employees that are just focused on security, online security. So they have reports, and they do send them to police, and police act on those. So they try to get them off of there. So make sure your kids are aware. If there's somebody on the gaming system and they're trying to get you onto a different chat platform, first red flag. Don't go to the other platform, because they're taking you to a platform that is not being monitored. Xbox is probably the most that I know of, and we met with others as well, but I do talk about them because they do have by far the best protection for your children. And the CEO actually said, we've created this device. It's our duty to protect our children from the device that we created. So they do have a robust security team. But I would just say, make sure your kids know to never leave that chat and go to another thing, because now they can do whatever they want and no one's going to monitor them. 14% of those kids meet with a predator online. 75% of them did it more than once. That's insane. Strangers. They're meeting with strangers. Now you can go to the next slide, please. So the $150 billion industry, I actually heard recently, is much more than that, which I know because the stat's been going around for so many years. 236 billion, and then I've heard NASDAQ's apparently said there's over 300 billion. But with 150 billion, you can buy every football team, NFL football team, every Starbucks franchise, put every child in the United States through 4 years of college. That's how much money you're dealing with in a year. Why is it so prevalent? Because you got to imagine this. If I'm a drug dealer and I have to go buy cocaine, and then I got to split that up and I got to sell it to a bunch of different people, and then I got to take that money and I got to reinvest it into cocaine, and then I got to go out, and now I'm taking all these risks of reinvesting and investing. Well, when you own a child, can make you $200,000 on average a year, one child. So they can take that child that they've stolen or purchased and make 100% return on investment all day, every day, and never ever reinvest into a product. Go to the next slide, please. So what are we helping with? We're helping people identify what's going on. We're trying to educate people, and then the training. What's really important about what we do, so we're the bridge between the people and the police. The police are so massively underfunded, and what's going on right now in our administration will not get funding anytime soon. I'm not going to get into all of it, but you all know what's been going on with police for the last several years, not just defunding, but how they're being treated and talked about. And I will say that I work with officers who are the guardian angels of these children, protecting them from predators and hunting predators that are going to take their innocence. So I think we need to change that a little bit. Training for our officers, so we're the bridge, as I was saying, between the people and the police. We're allowing you to fund your local police through the grants that we provide to give them free training and education and all the equipment that they need to do all these investigations online, because they don't even know where to start, a lot of them. And they don't have the resources to send 5 of their investigators on an airplane in a hotel for a week to a conference that they have to pay for that conference, where we have video training first, and then we fly in and we do hands-on. We bring the equipment, we set them all up, we start doing live operations. We do live conversations and kind of walking them through so they don't do entrapment and all that stuff. And then eventually we're helping them write the arrest warrants and getting the probable cause that they need to go make arrests. And then we're going out and we're actually going out and arresting people at the end of their training. That's a lot of what we do. You could go to the next slide, please. I know I got 1 minute left. I'm so sorry. I don't hear the music yet, though. No. Next slide, please. That's kind of what we talked about. We do the hands-on training. We provide them with digital equipment and forensics to extract. One thing I have to talk about, because I know you guys are going to love this, ESD, electronic storage device, canines. You can get them for your department. Electronic storage devices are electronic storage. It could be as small as your fingernail. The micro SD cards or thumb drives, cell phones, hard drives, all that stuff has a component on them that these dogs can smell out. Why is it important to find those? Because they're housing tens of thousands of images of children. We call it CSAM, child sexual abuse material. I call it child sexual assault material. The more evidence we can find, the bigger sentence they're gonna get. But inside those devices, we can also find more predators, the network that they're working with. We can find more victims that they've been chatting with and paying sex for. So those devices are so important. 75% of that evidence is missed by man. So the dogs can go in there and find those in lampshades, light sockets, all over. So that's one of the things. And then the last one I think is really important is that we provide mental health therapy for law enforcement. This is the most heinous crime. It is insane. The stories that I don't want to ruin your life with, we have to see, hear, and deal with and see pictures of all the time. It'll ruin marriages. It'll ruin relationships with children. It will make you live in hate and anger if you don't deal with it. And we have to support our law enforcement that way, because you talk about PTSD, you're not just selling drugs to a criminal who's choosing to do that. You're dealing with criminals who are doing horrible things to innocent children. So we need to help fund our police and get them the mental health that they need. Scan the QR code. We're gonna help support law enforcement. We're here to serve communities through law enforcement. Thank you so much.
Well, a big shout out to Nate Lewis for coming to the Save Our Children conference. Of course, because of how many speakers wanted to come, many of our speakers didn't quite have enough time. And Nate was someone I had a lot of questions I'd like to ask. So what I want to share with you is the information I gleaned from our conversations. Of course, of all of our speakers, I can truly say that what Nate had to say was the most shocking. So one of the first things I learned was that they recently changed their name to The Innocent, which Nate was excited about when it became available. So don't forget to look them up on the web at theinnocent.org. While hearing details about the dark web was scary, I have to say that some of the mainstream social media sites were even more concerning. Indeed, media platforms like Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook have reported significant spikes in the removal of child sexual abuse content in recent years. In 2020, over 21.7 million reports of suspected child molestation were made, marking the highest number ever recorded in a single year, especially when you consider that right now, 93% of teens are on social media. Of course, the danger is for everyone, but especially for women and young girls because predators frequently target them. Spamming is nothing new, but the platforms have changed because children play in the digital world for up to 9 hours a day. That's why we must exercise caution when sharing information online. Unfortunately, online predators are looking for personal information from your online presence so that they can identify, groom, and exploit your children. Your innocent social media photos can be repurposed for consumption on the dark web. So we need to be constantly monitoring our children's online activities. For example, we recommend setting social media profiles to private, routinely review follower and friend lists, exclude identifying information in posts and bios, don't share locations, schools, and frequent hangouts, etc. And consider removing all of your images of your children online. Some additional safeguards are using watermarked images, screenshot images before posting them to remove metadata, and limit visibility of posts to friends and vetted followers only. If this sounds a little overwhelming, there's some online apps that can also help to limit our exposure. The Bark Parental Monitoring app scans your child's text messages, images, 30+ social media apps, web browsers, emails, and other online activity while respecting your child's privacy. BART will only alert you concerning questionable dialogue, internet searches, or other activities so that you can take the necessary action to protect your children. I can tell you as a parent, I have spent more than 20 plus hours trying to figure out how to keep my children safe from porn on their cell phones and computers. It's like a horrible, frustrating science project that you thought someone had already figured out, but didn't. The good news is that there are many products out there. I chose Canopy because it was one application that could police all of my devices, and it works quite well. My question is, why are children being handed all these devices that automatically take them to such places, when virtually every website verifies someone's age? Unsupervised and unlocked devices are how deviant sexualization is being pushed on a new generation. Indeed, an innocent search can be used to push the most graphic content right up front. But that's where we as parents come in to educate our children. Here's a list of some helpful websites. They include CyberWise, the Bark Blog, Safer Kid, Child Mind Institute, Get Smarts, and Common Sense Media. Of course, I loved how Nate pointed out that prioritizing our relationship with our children is the only way to increase our believability and to be heard on some of these issues. Nate also mentioned some additional resources for how we can protect children, and they include the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, the Advocacy Center, the National Sex Offenders Registry, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the Internet Watch Foundation, and the U.S. Department of Justice. But the most important question I asked Nate Lewis was how we could get his system to find sexual predators in our neighborhoods. I was blown away to realize that in 24 hours, they could make a case against 40 plus men trying to solicit a minor in the small town of Plant City, Florida. Larger cities like Tampa could have been anywhere between 250 to over 1,000. Yet of all the issues we talked about at the Save Our Children conference, more people attended our breakout session on stopping sex trafficking than any other topic. So please be sure to look for a release of that session shortly. Unfortunately, most of us have no idea what we can do to stop sex trafficking and the sexual predation of our children. But thankfully, the innocent.org's basic system, which includes hardware, software, and training, can be purchased for as little as $15,000. You also don't have to worry about trying to develop a relationship between your local police departments, because they will help you with that as well. In our case, after we contacted Nate, he was able to start a fundraising campaign and give us a QR code specific to our area. So if you would like to support our Alliance's initiative to give this fantastic system to the police departments of the Tampa Bay area, just use the QR code on the screen where you can donate discreetly. Not only does the innocent.org have the technology to police the dark web, but it also has the training necessary to help local law enforcement agencies identify these predators and put them behind bars. If you would like to support or contact the innocent.org and help them carry out their mission, please contact their team at hello@theinnocent.org or visit their website www.theinnocent.org. My final thoughts about this are very straightforward. When Jesus began what is now known as the Lord's Prayer, he said, "Our Father." And God is a perfect Father. And that is why he wants to return the hearts of the fathers back to the children. But now comes the truth. When I share these things with people, they give me a lot of advice about what I should do and who I should talk to. But I'm waiting for those of us who have the heart of the Father to see the plight of our children and simply say, "Here I am, Lord, send me." And that's why I'm praying that God will wake up our hearts and stir us to get personally involved in saving our children. Of course, shortly we will share some of the breakout sessions, including the one about sex trafficking, so you can also understand some of the best action plans available by different organizations. Of course, as always, I pray that you will consider helping us purchase the innocent.org system for every county in America. Lastly, may God bless you and guide you as we come together to save our children.